This is Donald Parham. You're listening to Chargers Unleashed, part of the LAFB Network. Stay jiggy.
Hey, this is Chris from the second Chargers outside linebacker, and make sure you check out Chargers Unleashed. Shout out to Chargers Unleashed, Sebastian Joseph. They know the vibes. We outside.
Are you checking in with Mike Williams from the LA Chargers, and you're tuning in to the Chargers Unleashed?
You're listening to the Chargers Unleashed podcast with your host, Dan Wolkenstein and Jake Hefner.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by BetOnline, Charger Bowl Family, Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Dan Wolkenstein returns from the sandy beaches of Maui, sipping Mai Tais, getting sun rays, comes right back into the thick of things for a very interesting first day of free agent frenzy. Dan Wolkenstein, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Man, aloha, mahalo for tuning in to Chargers Unleashed. Thank you for the welcome back. Super excited. It's been a long time coming. Been about a week since I've been out, but Jay, what a way to come back then to see Chargers free agency frenzy day one begins. Couldn't have been us that was recording, and all of a sudden news breaks, so we got to redo it again for the third time, but that's okay because here we are. Again, if you are new to the show, be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that like button wherever you are. Jake, obviously fresh, not even inked yet. News off the street. Eric Kendricks, former all-pro linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, previously seen in 2021 intercepting Justin Herbert on a miraculous interception, by the way. Chargers signed him to a 2-year deal. Still some specifics to remain. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into, obviously, the Austin Ekler news. We'll get into the offensive tackle market, what this means for Drue Tranquill, some of the stuff we saw from Gerald Everett, possible Bijan Robinson discussion now. Who knows? It's going to be a short and quick one. But, Jake,
I know you're about to kick it off with the big news of the day that Easton Stick is returning to the Los Angeles Chargers to be the primary backup for Justin Herbert. What a way to start the day.
Yes. Shout out to everyone who is joining us live. Shout out to Matt Trzynski. Shout out to Gretz, Matthew, Robert, Ben. We got a bunch of people in the comments. Go ahead and leave a comment, questions. We'll try to get to it as quickly as possible. Again, this will be a quick one. Try to do 25 minutes the most. We just want to get instant reactions of Los Angeles Chargers going after the linebacker market. We saw a ton of linebackers go today, and we saw the Chargers grab one, Eric Kendricks. We'll see what happens to Drue Tranquill. But Jake, I guess first impressions on the news. It came way later than I think a lot of folks wanted, but what are your thoughts?
You know,
there are layers to this.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Would I have rather have had Drue Tranquill back? Yes, I would. I think that, you know, you look at Drue Tranquill and Eric Kendricks. Obviously, Eric Kendricks has been in the league for 8 years now. He's going to be 31 years old. It's going to be a short-term, basically kind of a Band-Aid to what you now are going to have with him and Kenneth Murray at the linebacker spot. So you'll have to be reinvesting in this position again down the road. Like I said, I much rather would have liked to have been able to sign Drue Tranquill to a longer deal. But with the Chargers in the cap situation that they currently are at right now, unfortunately, they're just not able to do that. I was speculating I would have loved to have get both Drue Tranquill and Trey Pipkins back, but I truly felt that you were probably, as things were lining up to free agency, that only one was coming back, unfortunately. So what does this mean for the Chargers as it relates to Eric Kendricks? Well, obviously you needed something because you couldn't go into this season with just Kenneth Murray and a bunch of question marks at the linebacker position. If you ended up losing Drue Tranquill, you had to go out and reinvest in it, whether it was free agency or if it was in the draft. And the Chargers, especially with the deals that you saw from the linebacking positions today, go off the board. Chargers came away with, again, we don't know the full contract details yet, but hopefully something that would be of the reasonable variety. The only thing that we do know is the duration of the deal, which is that it is a 2-year deal for Eric Kendricks. But yeah, it's there are things that definitely Eric Kendricks does a little bit better than Drue Tranquill as far as the run game goes and how he performs there. But I don't know. I felt the exact same way about when people were putting in the news out last week that the Chargers were going to be interested in Bobby Wagner. It's
This
just
is much cheaper. I promise you this is cheaper.
I get that, and I'm with you on that, but it's just it's a short-term Band-Aid. So
True.
you do not have your long-term answer at linebacker, at least right now, from what we know from Kenneth Murray. He has not been able to show that he is going to be that answer. So the Chargers are going to have to be reinvesting in this position yet again in a couple years. But for Eric Kendricks, it's good familiarity with his coaching staff, specifically with Jeff Howard when he was previously there with the Minnesota Vikings. Also knows Ryan Fitkin as well. So some familiarity there. And that's definitely a leader that you can bring into your locker room. Who's definitely going to man the middle of the defense as best as he can. But I'm okay with it, Dan. Like I said, I much would rather have had brought back Drue Tranquill, but this pretty much puts the writing on the wall that it doesn't sound like, unfortunately, that he's going to be coming back.
Yeah, it makes it very slim chances, at least, that Drue Tranquill comes back. But again, the fact that, I don't think this is going to be that much of a signing in terms of cap hit. But again, do I see them putting that plus Drue Tranquill at the linebacker position, considering who the head coach is? Probably not. Eric Kendricks, for those who don't know, former All-Pro, had 124 tackles last year, 74 solo. The year prior, 125 tackles, 63 solo, 5 sacks. Again, this was a staple former captain of the Minnesota Vikings. Again, quality piece. We're not saying he's All-Pro now. Quality piece. Is he as good as Drue Tranquill is? I would say...
Don't say it. Don't you dare.
I would say he's close. But obviously older. So is he the long-term solution? No. But honestly, Jake, are the Chargers looking for a long-term solution right now? No. They're looking to win now. So the long-term stuff, I'm not as bothered by. Does he get me as excited as if the Chargers were going to re-sign Drue Tranquill? No. But let's say he's $5 million, Drue Tranquill's $10 million. I think I would take Kendricks. That's $5 million. You can go out and sign 3 veteran minimum quality depth pieces that you can have to end up kind of filling out this roster. But we've seen the Chargers go out and do some of these signings previously for the older guys. Some of them work out, some of them don't. Kyle Van Noy worked out great. Looked lovely. We saw kind of Thomas Davis linebacker fiasco. It wasn't terrible, but he didn't really move the needle. I don't necessarily know, someone in the comments is talking about, I hope it's not a Chris Harris signing. We saw the Chris Harris signing kind of not work out too well. We don't know. But what we do know is the Chargers running defense was terrible. And Eric Kendricks is a good run defense linebacker. Doesn't miss many tackles, or at least misses fewer than Drue Tranquill, I believe. And I think he's a little bit more aggressive and I'll say more aggressive than Drue Tranquill is. So, on its face, is it the big splash that some folks are hoping for? Probably unrealistic. No. But, again, it's one piece that the Chargers now have to add. I don't know. I'm not over the moon. I'm not terribly upset. I think this is kind of one of those Kyle Van Noy, maybe a little bit better signings. But I can't help but be a little bummed that it might mean Drue Tranquill's not back. Just because he was drafted by the Chargers. He's a homegrown talent. We love his passion, love what he brings to the team. He's obviously one of the leaders for a reason. So, I don't know. I'm still kind of worried. I'm still kind of processing, not going to lie. But we'll see. That's linebacker. We'll see what happens with Drue Tranquill. Again, there's still a bunch of linebackers out there. We saw so many guys go in the free agency for linebacker, as well as for the offensive tackle market. But Jake, let's talk about the other big piece that came out today. Austin Ekler, the Chargers, in negotiations, clearly not close right now, at least so it seems. Ekler has requested to seek trade options elsewhere. Now, Chargers haven't said yes, but just that alone, I think irks a lot of people. ourselves included. Jake, what is a world without Austin Ekeler? Don't even like saying that. What does that look like? Should we be concerned?
Well, Dan, while I give my response, do this, because as much as we like hearing your voice, we'd like to see your mouth actually match up to it. I want you to take yourself out of there real quick and then come back in, and then we'll be better on your frame. But I'll go ahead and respond. You go ahead and get out of there and come back in, and I'll take it from here. From the Austin Ekeler standpoint, I understand both sides of the line here. As far as Austin Ekeler goes, when you look at what his contract number is and his performance that he has done over the past 2 years, the Chargers have gotten him for a bargain. And over the last 2 years, he has severely outplayed that contract. And as far as touchdown goes, getting in the end zone, he's second behind Derrick Henry. And for what he has done, and he's getting up there in age, obviously he wants to get paid. And let's be honest, he's earned it. Like I said, he has severely outplayed that contract. Now, from the Chargers' perspective, obviously it sounds like they were working on, extending him, renegotiating, getting some terms of his contract. And it sounds like it has been going on for some time, but the two sides have just not been able to come to an agreement, hence Ekeler's trade request. Now, from the Chargers, if they ultimately ended up deciding to let Austin Ekeler seek a trade, I firmly believe that his trade value ceiling will be no higher than what it is right now. It would be very hard for me to think that after the Chargers were 30th in rushing, it's still remarkable the season that Austin and Ekeler ended up having statistically, with as bad as a whole as the Chargers were as a running offense last year. But you could try to just keep him on this roster, bank that he would have another productive year. You let him walk. Maybe you end up getting a third round compensatory pick from it down the road, or you trade it. But if you could guarantee that, that would be great. But you don't know that that's exactly going to happen. So if the Chargers decided to move on from him right now, to me, it is his perfect stealing. With his age, with what he's produced in the last 2 years, it's a tough pill to swallow. I get it. I love I love Austin Ekeler. Everybody loves Austin Ekeler. Self-made man, gone from an undrafted free agent to a fan favorite, great locker room energy and leader for this team. It's a tough pill to swallow, because Austin Ekeler still makes this offense great, and the Chargers running back room would take a huge hit without him on it. But I get it from both sides, from a business standpoint and from Austin's perspective of what he is looking for. So you kind of have to understand that and ride that middle of the road. So if the Chargers ended up pulling that trigger and
I hear so many feelings
take place, under the circumstances, you can't fault Austin Ekeler for wanting to get paid a little bit more.
Look, I get the feelings. I get everyone loves Austin Ekeler, myself included. And for the record, I want to see Austin Ekeler in Los Angeles Chargers in 2023. Let me put that out there right now. He's a very high-performing offensive weapon for this Los Angeles Chargers team. Period. That said, one of the things the Chargers sucked at last year was running the football. And that's with Austin Ekeler on the team. So they got to fix that. Now, will it be helped with a Kellen Moore run offense? I think so. Can Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller improve? I think so. Fact remains, Austin Ekeler didn't sniff 1,000 yards this year rushing. I think he was 18th in the NFL in rushing. Now, great pass catching running back, but the Chargers need to be able to run the ball effectively. And so, can they get something in return? I would think so. Like you said, now sell high. I don't think you're going to get any more for him than you will right now. Can they extend him? Certainly. Will they? I don't know if their cap can afford that, if I'm just being honest. Now, Jake, there's been a lot of stuff that has kind of like trickled down from this news of Austin Ekler. Everyone immediately went, including Vegas, including, I believe, his PFF, talked about, all right, well, hey, if the Chargers aren't going to have Austin Ekler, then they go Bijan Robinson 21. That's the pick. And look, there was a frenzy going on, not only in free agency, but also on Chargers Twitter, when I said the Chargers should not take him at 21, with or without Austin Ekeler being there. And I kind of stand on that, not going to lie. Cameron Burnett says, if Bijan is there at 21, there's no way you're okay with passing him, Dan. And I will respond, I am okay with passing on him if there are certain guys that are available. Would I be pissed off if Bijan Robinson is the Chargers pick at 21? No, I don't think I'd be pissed. But in my ideal situation, there are other guys I would rather have. And additionally, the Chargers running game, I think, can be fixed without spending the number 21 overall pick. But would Bijan Robinson make the team better? Absolutely. But I think you can find me 4 running backs in this draft who can make this team better and running as a running team, while also going out and getting one of the premier edge rushers or tight ends or possibly DBs if they fall. Would I be upset? No. But like, in my opinion, I want to give Justin Herbert as many weapons that he can throw to. And sure, Bijan Robinson is a pass-catching running back. I get that. And he's also a great running back. But I think you can get a running back who can go 1,000 yards without spending it on round 1. My opinion, could be wrong. That's okay. Find me the last Super Bowl winning team that has a round 1 running back that they drafted. I'll wait. Now, again, I can be wrong. And I honestly, it might be good for the Chargers to have someone like a Bijan Robinson to take the load off of Justin Herbert. But me, as a GM, I want Justin Herbert to be the guy. Like, I don't want to take the ball away from him, even if it's to someone who's great. I don't know. I don't see Patrick Mahomes doing that. I don't see Josh Allen doing that. I don't see Burrow doing that. All these guys don't have round 1 running backs. Look at the Eagles. They don't got it. I just don't know from a roster building perspective. I don't know if that works. Again, I could be wrong. I will be happy if they draft him. I just don't think I would do it if I was Tom Telesco. Call me crazy. That's okay. Jake, am I crazy?
You're kind of crazy. I agree with some of the things that you said, as far as, at least you're okay, I guess, with the idea of Bijan. You obviously know that if he was ultimately the pick at 21, that he would make this offense better. Yes, that's true. But Dan, it's just, to me, and this is where there is a lot of context into this. To me, this actually, strangely enough, goes back to Isaiah Spiller. And for the fact that the Chargers have drafted Larry Roundtree, Joshua Kelly, and Isaiah Spiller over the last 3 years to try to round out this running back committee that the Chargers have had. And if Isaiah Spiller had maybe gotten an opportunity to be injected into this offense a little bit more, now obviously that necessarily doesn't have anything or entirely to do with him. That was more of a scheme coaching decision from that standpoint, which I don't necessarily agree with. But to say that Isaiah Spiller wasn't beating out the likes of Sony Michel, of Larry Roundtree, and why he couldn't have gotten injected into this run offense a little bit more last year, that is still a puzzler. Mm-hmm. But if we had gotten an opportunity to see Isaiah Spiller a little bit more, I think that this question would be a little bit more, easy to decipher. But
I'm glad you brought him up, because I'm a big Isaiah Spiller fan. Isaiah Spiller in this new run scheme, I like. People are underestimating the Kellen Moore run scheme and the difference that will make.
Dad, look, I know what Kellen Moore did with the likes of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas. We haven't seen that yet with this team. And if you were to tell me that there's a difference when you have the likes of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard as your primary running backs, as opposed to saying Kellen Moore is about to take over a running back stable that does not have Austin Ekler in it. So based off of that, and your theory as far as, okay, I don't want to take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hand. I want to be able to make this, you want to bring back the 2020 Justin Herbert. I get it. And I'll admit, I've been, you asked me a month ago, knowing fully that Austin Ekler was still under contract with this team, and before this trade news came down, I probably wouldn't have said that I would have wanted Bijan Robinson at number 1, just given the fact that I knew Austin Ekler was going to be there. Maybe you swing for a fence with, Tajay Spears in the later rounds. Jamari Gibbs in the later rounds. Who knows?
Please.
But Dan, if you were to tell me that the Chargers trade away Austin Ekler, that type of production with a bunch of question marks at the running back stable, Bijan Robinson bucks the trend for running backs being taken in the first round. He is the exception to that notion. I get it. Running backs are not valued in the same way as other positions in this league.
David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, like there's so many guys out there that how many of these guys have gone round one? Like I think what I've come to the conclusion of is like there are two, let's call it, say, ice cream flavors. Okay, got chocolate and vanilla. Both are good. Just depends on what you want. I think I like the chocolate scenario in which the Chargers are going air raid offense and are not this like balanced, let's call it like a, I don't know, Tennessee Titans style offense or like a New England Patriots style offense. Today's New England Patriots. I want to see what we see with like the Bills, what we see with the Chiefs. Like I want that kind of offense. Now, can they be a, balanced offense? Can we go back to the LT Rivers Gates days? I guess. But I don't know. We haven't seen that kind of football win lately. And I could be wrong. Again, I could be wrong. Now, people are getting crazy here. Low ball shots already. People are talking about, oh, Dan would take Tank Dell in the first round, which I've been on record. They're not wrong.
Don't deny that.
Okay. At post-combine, which again, I have not been on the show since the combine stuff ended. Post-combine, if I was sitting there with 21, Tank Dell or Bijan Robinson, I'm probably taking Bijan Robinson. Like,
first of all, I know how much Dan has a man crush on Tank Dell, but that's night and day as far as comparison. But Dan, the big point that I was trying to get at, as far as what you were saying, I don't want to take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands. You want them to make a move that is going to be more productive to help Justin Herbert downfield. So, i.e., a wide receiver, a tight end. Okay, I get all of that. And tight end has been a big position that people have talked about for this upcoming draft. No question about it. Bijan Robinson, if you were to lose the likes of of Austin Ekeler, for as much as he brings you as an offensive weapon to this team, both in the running game and in the passing game, he would be the one that would immediately supplant that. And how fitting is it that in comparisons, when the running backs are out there running their drills and Daniel Jeremiah puts his comparison up,
knew you were going to go there,
that it's Bijan Robinson and measurables would come up and it's LT.
Look, do I think that Bijan Robinson will make this team better if they draft at 21? 100%. Obviously. I think where I'm landing on is like, I don't necessarily think they need to go Bijan Robinson to fix the run game. I really don't.
Well,
I know we've gone 3rd, 4th round, 5th round picks and they haven't worked out. I get it.
And that's my point. You've tried doing that even by committee. And
yes,
even
but we've had Joe Lombardi as our offensive coordinator. Even with Austin Ekeler, the Chargers' run game sucked.
I understand that.
And so the Chargers already have that weapon that Bijan Robinson could be as a pass-catching running back.
Look,
they already have that part.
Is there a handful of players that, even still given need and probably a BPA at that point for what's needed for this team, that I would put over Bijan Robinson? Yeah, I would, but it's not a lot. And especially if it's a situation where Austin Ekeler is no longer part of this team. You look at the Chargers as it stands right now, most of the moves, even if we're talking about edge, tight end, anything like that, you're looking at more depth pieces at best, maybe with the exception of tight end, because obviously with some of these guys, they can step in immediately, even with a Gerald Everett, and be tight end 1. But if you were to take Austin Ekeler away from this team, Dan, with kind of let's just call it what it is, a hodgepodge of a running back committee that is behind you, that has not proven at all that none of them can step up to be a primary ball carrier, you have to put that as one of the top priorities if that scenario ends up playing itself out. Yeah. But let me preface this. There is no guarantee that Bijan Robinson will even last to 21.
Right. The fact is, that we're talking about right now, this is all moot.
Yes,
like the fact that the chances of Bijan Robinson being there at 21, the Chargers letting go or trading Austin Ekeler, like both of those things are, if we're being honest, like kind of not likely. It just, in my eyes, the one I see is most likely the Chargers probably keep Austin Ekeler through 2023, and then they probably just let him walk because I think right now the team's better with him on it, and they need to win right now.
Well,
So-
Dan, here's the good news for you. We have 6 weeks until the NFL draft. So you have 6 weeks to take everybody's fire and try to still say your point.
Yes. By the way, Jake, Coupon Tom would never trade up. This is rich.
Well, wait a minute. He traded up for Melvin Gordon.
He traded up for Kenneth Murray. What does that even mean? Okay.
I would rather see Coupon Tom trade down. Something that he has not done his entire.
Yeah, let's let Coupon Tom trade down once, please. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. All right, so Jake, we saw Kendricks, new linebacker. What that means possibly for Drue Tranquill. Trey Pipkins is still out there. Lots of tackles that were drafted. Lots of tackles that were signed today to massive contracts. Some of them high, some of them ridiculous. Trey Pipkins is still there. Where do you see, does it seem more or less likely that he's a Charger after today's news?
Well, now that we have the news that Kendricks is being signed to the Chargers, like I said, I would love for a world where we could be sitting here today knowing that Drue Tranquill and Trey Pipkins were both coming back to this team. As far as the Chargers spending goes, you felt a little bit better about that once all these restructures came in over the weekend with Keenan Allen, with Mike Williams, with Joey Bosa, with Khalil Mack, and freeing up all that cap space. The Chargers still are expected to release some other names down the road that could free up even more. But I really would like to see, I really wish we could have seen a world where Drue Tranquill and Trey Pipkins are back. As we got closer to this, it turned out being just looks like either or one or the other is going to remain. So with this news today, that pretty much all but solidifies that Drue Tranquill will not be returning. I think that there is a higher possibility that the Chargers know that basically Drue Tranquill and Trey Pipkins were their 1A, 1B as far as their internal priorities. And I think especially even after the offensive line deals that were doled out today, which were huge money deals, that you need to keep some continuity along the offensive line for Justin Herbert. And trust me, I have been a critic of Trey Pipkins in the past, as I know a lot of people have, but this year he put in the work, trained with Rashawn Slater. You could tell that there was a huge jump in his improvement, big difference when he wasn't on the field as far as what was there. So if the Chargers were not able to secure Trey Pipkins, that immediately is going to change their draft priorities. An offensive tackle would probably go to priority one, especially given the fact that now most of the offensive tackles, at least the solid ones, are now off the board in free agency. So I can't imagine the Chargers letting both of them walk out the door. And hopefully even for a reasonable price based off of Pipkins' performance last year, that they could bring him back.
Yeah, I think Pipkins they're both good stories. But I think Pipkins is kind of like a feather in the cap for Tom Telesco. And, for everyone that was crucifying him for drafting Trey Pipkins, now everyone's crowning him and Trey Pipkins. I think Trey Pipkins comes back. I just don't see how they let him go. Again, I know it takes two, but that seems like one that would have mutual interest for both of them to come in. Jake, earlier today, also, there was a cryptic tweet. Maybe he's just very blessed, but a comment in here. Current Chargers tight end Gerald Everett tweeted today, quote, blessed. Now, could that mean that he just feels blessed because he went to church recently, or that he had a nice bowl of cereal and that he has a great day in the sunny LA? Maybe. Could he have gotten extended? Possibly. Could he have gotten news that maybe he's on a trade block, or maybe he's going to be getting cut? Who knows? But that started the questions around like, oh, should the Chargers look at someone like a Dalton Schultz, who I said in the past could be someone to look for, considering he played with the Cowboys under a one Kellen Moore. Do you see the possibility of the Chargers going tight end in free agency any higher or lower with the Gerald Everett news? Is the Gerald Everett thing even anything? Would you rather do Dalton Schultz or someone like that, or go round one, tight end around two? Like, what are your thoughts on the tight end stuff?
I mean, I think if Gerald Everett was a cap casualty, which a lot of people were predicting that he was going to be just about a month ago, then I think going after Dalton Schultz when all you had on your roster at that point is Trey McKitty, that would make a lot of sense. I think if Gerald Everett is still here, I think you go out and you draft your tight end of the future. And you make a high priority of bringing, and again, we're talking about a very deep and talented tight end class in this draft. And there's a good shot that the Chargers could find a long-term answer from a number of different guys in this draft. So I think that would be the either or scenario. If between now and when we get to the draft that Gerald Everett possibly ends up being released, then yes, I think that the Chargers make a run in free agency. Dalton Schultz makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the familiarity with him and Kellen Moore. But if they keep Gerald Everett, I think that they would shift their priorities to the NFL draft at that point.
Yeah. I think I would rather see them go tight end in round 1 or round 2, just because this tight end class is insane. And whoever that is will be cheaper than a Dalton Schultz, if I'm being honest. Lots of folks in the comments are talking about wanting to go round 1 or 2 tight end. Folks are talking about
absolutely.
People talking about Kincaid, people talking about Mayer, people talking about Darnell Washington. A lot of people
just crushed it at the combine, by the way.
Talk about someone who could fix the running game. Darnell Washington, my goodness. So that covers the tackle market. We didn't talk about Fehoko. Fehoko, we heard. Donald Parham, we also heard.
The chart
not going to be brought back.
I like how you brought this up, because the day one of free agent frenzy was it just felt like such a downer for Chargers fans that it just felt like either every hour or 30 minutes. Obviously, it started with Easton Stick returning. Okay, that's what we had to wake up to our phones to this morning. And then the first nugget dropped that the Chargers and Donald Parham, they were going to look different directions. Donald Parham was going to test free agency. Then the second nugget dropped that Fehoko was going to start testing the market, which really bums me out. And then, of course, the caveat was Austin Ekeler is now requesting a trade. But getting back to the Fehoko news, this one really bums me out. Mm-hmm. And this stems back all the way to the beginning of training camp when he ended up making the final roster. And then I'm not sure exactly what the details were that changed that brought him back to the practice squad where he
Jorge says it's karma for Hoko hating on In-N-Out.
Oh, that's what it is. I know he has plenty of debates as it relates to food, so who knows?
And he could still be back. Let's be real. He could still be back.
I look, this is what I would think. I would think after you have Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, who went out for the year, Tito Ogbonniba went out for the year, Christian Covington went out for the year. You finally cut ties with Jerry Tillery last year. Of the remaining interior defensive linemen, and I can kind of consider Morgan Fox in this category because he's a little bit of a hybrid, is able to play inside and outside, but Fehoko was one of your best performers. And why this whole decision that was made to not keep him on the final roster when he performed extremely well in training camp, going back to how he performed the previous year, he was one of your better performers. And if you're telling me that you're going to want to go into next year with Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, obviously as your perennial starters, in terms of depth pieces that are behind you, this is one of your better depth pieces to bring back because he's earned it. He's shown that he can play. He's shown that he could be a great rotational piece. His pass rush got a lot better last year. He was not just a good run defender. He was working on different aspects of his game. And personally, I think it would be a bad decision if the Chargers ended up letting him walk and not being able to come to a deal at some point. Again, never say never. We'll see what the market ends up looking like for him. Is there still a possibility? Absolutely. Do I think that the Chargers negotiated with him? Yes, I do. But obviously the two sides weren't able to come to an agreement, and this is where we stand. But even still, Dan, if Fehoko is not on this team next year, then all of a sudden you start thinking to yourself, okay, well, the Chargers already spent big in free agency on the interior defensive line last year to hope to somewhat fix the running game from 2021. That didn't end up happening. So now you're going to have to shift your priorities all over again for the draft to try to add a little bit more depth pieces behind that because there's not much.
True. I mean, I don't know. I guess I think the Foco stuff is unfortunate, but I think also we might be a little over our seas. Like, he very well could come back. I don't know what the market's going to be for him. I don't know. I think this kind of wait and see, but I don't know. Weird, Jake. People are talking about like, oh, let's trade Austin Ekeler and let's go get Derrick Henry, as if like the Chargers would want to take on that salary cap, B could take on that salary
Right.
cap.
Right. Look, there's a reason why the Titans are not able to trade Derrick Henry right now, and it's because of his cap situation, and because he's got a hell of a lot more mileage on him than Austin Ekeler has. The Chargers are actually in a good position if they choose to go this route of executing a trade for Austin Ekeler because his cap hit is low. So there could be a lot more teams that are interested. You possibly could get a little bit, I'm not talking first or second round here, but your compensation that you could get back for him could be a little bit higher because there's more cap flexibility there. And the next team that he goes to could possibly dictate the long-term deal that he has.
So, free agency frenzy, crazy, not all good. Obviously, got some news about Eric Kendricks, which I think is exciting. I'm not necessarily sure it'd be exciting. That's the only linebacker news that we get. I think folks are more freaked out about the Austin Ekeler news, which again, we'll see what happens. But again, I cannot say this enough. The Chargers running game, I promise you, I will put money on it right now, Jake. Chargers running game in 2023 will be better than the Chargers running game in 2022, regardless of who the running backs are.
First of all, I like how you say you'll put money on that. The Chargers were 30th in the league in rushing last year. They can't get much worse.
Thank you.
Nice way to hedge your bets.
Yeah, so they're going to get better. They're going to get better.
Nice way to go out on a limb.
Want to put money on it?
I mean, of course I would bet on it getting better. Like I said, It can't get much worse. It can't get much worse. I just like how you just like really swung for the fences on that prediction. That was a good job.
But that was with Austin Ekeler.
No, I get it. Regardless of who is back there, I would expect that it would get better. 100%.
And I think Isaiah Spiller can be that.
Dan, we can't forget the other nugget that Nestle we haven't heard anything on it yet. Obviously, it's just the expectations of the reports that came out is that the Chargers are expected to pursue safety John Johnson.
Hallelujah.
Who has familiarity with Brandon Staley from his days with the Rams. Obviously, he had gotten released by the Cleveland Browns earlier on this season. I think if you did that, if we're talking about bringing in somebody to supplant the likes of Nasir Adderley not being on this team anymore. Again, when he hit free agency a couple years ago, I remember when this was the first year, obviously, that Brandon Staley was the head coach. A lot of people were making those type of connections when you were looking at former Rams that he could have brought over at the time. Didn't happen then. I think if you brought him in now, on probably would be more of a friendlier deal for the Chargers, given that his play has dropped off a little bit. But hey, his best years were under Brandon Staley. So I think if you put him in a combination with Derwin James, with what you have in the secondary right now, I think that would be a great bit. Let's just call it upgrade for what the Chargers previously had at that safety position.
Yeah, if we could have Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, and John Johnson, like I'm good with that. I'll roll with it for sure, especially with Derwin anchoring that. John Johnson would be a great one. I wanted him when he was a free agent prior to going to the Browns. Obviously, connections to Brandon Staley, had his best years under him. So
Jeff Howard, who is just part of that coaching staff for that defense last year in Cleveland. So makes a lot of sense. And those are the reports. Not sure when it's going to be happening. It might be even happening right now. And watch, Dan O'Benai will probably have to re-record this podcast all over again.
For a fourth time.
Because the way that this has been going today, the news is just going to start breaking as soon as we get off the show here. But those are the next steps that we've heard as far as the Chargers goes in free agency. So again, I don't expect the Chargers to be huge players. Obviously, they can't be as big of players as they were last year in free agency with their cap situation. But those are the latest news that we have heard up until this point.
Yes. So day one, not even done yet, but we're still going. We might get some more news, but we will be back this week to talk about day 2, 3, 4. We've got a ton of special guests to talk free agency and NFL draft, possibly some draft prospects that we're going to talk to, possibly some draft experts, people that we can't really pronounce their first or last names at first, but we've gotten it now. A lot of people are having issues with them. Little tease there. Lots of stuff coming up for Chargers Unleashed and for Chargers fans watching and listening. Do us a favor. Take 10 seconds while I'm blabbing right now. Hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Does it help us out a lot. Go leave us a comment or whatever on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
And leave in the comments who you want to see the Chargers go after free agency or the draft for that matter.
Yes, where do we see the Chargers going? I guess that was my last question to wrap this thing up, Jake, is where do we see the Chargers going tomorrow? Like moonshot, what's your prediction?
I would hope that tomorrow we get some type of traction on the Trey Pipkins deal, especially after this Eric Kendricks signing. I think all the focus should immediately focus to getting Trey Pipkins under contract for the Chargers, if that is indeed their priorities. And if that happens, then I would make an assumption that maybe not the same day, but shortly afterwards, maybe later on this week, that Matt Filer ends up being released. And then obviously you would expect that Jamari Sawyer would step into that position at left guard. Other positions of need outside of the John Johnson news that we have heard, it would probably be more depth. And I think that the Chargers would kind of take a break and see what the next couple of waves of free agency do. And that they would look to just supplant that with depth pieces and maybe even some returning players that they had last year.
Some folks have called their shots. Leave it in the comments if you'd like, of what you want to see, what you see the Chargers possibly doing tomorrow. Some people say they have the Eagles taking Austin Ekeler, which we should, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. That was on the NFL Network. People talking about that.
Maurice Jones-Drew talked about that earlier.
Yep.
Rich Eisen posed the question, said, what would be the best fit for a trading partner? And he said the Eagles.
I agree. I think it will help lower the temper of the Chargers fan base if they get a Trey Pipkins signing tomorrow. I think we're gonna see something. We'll see. I think we'll see Trey Pipkins, and then we're going to see a John Johnson. I'm just gonna put that out there. And then I also think there's going to be one coming out of complete left field. But we shall see. Look, I know this was an emergency podcast. We didn't really put anything out there ahead of time, but I appreciate the crazy amount of people that are in this right now watching us live. Chargers finish out, at least as of 7:05 p.m. Pacific time, with Eric Kendricks as their newest linebacker, former Viking, former All-Pro linebacker, to go into their linebacking core. We'll see what that means for A1 Drue Tranquill. Again, lots of linebackers still out there, familiar faces. Denzel Perryman, Kaiser White, Bobby Wagner still out there. So lots of feelings in that linebacking core.
None of that's happening.
So we will see what happens. And someone corrected me. Johnson won't be until Wednesday because the Browns haven't officially released him yet. I stand corrected.
Thank you.
I meant Wednesday. But that's it. Jake, anything else you want to tell the great friends before we head out of here for our evening?
We're off and running. We're getting that much closer to the NFL draft. Free agency day one in the books as of 7:07, at least for us. Watch, like I said, luck will have it. We'll get another speck of Chargers news that'll happen as soon as we go off the air. But no, it's been an interesting day for the Charger fans everywhere as far as hearing some. I don't even necessarily would say if you would say good news from this circumstance. Let's just say, okay. Let's just see what happens type news.
Yes, TBD. Again, shout out to everyone who was commenting, taking part in this one. This is a fun one. Tegum says he believes that there will be something out of left field coming, and he believes that I am right to the Bijan Robinson stuff. Jorge Rodriguez at the end. We're here because we love you and your takes, whether they're good or not. Bijan, I'll take that heat. That's fine. Look, at the end of the day, we're all Chargers fans wanting to see this Chargers team succeed, and that's what we're hoping for in 2023. Jake, until next time, you can find his lovely face at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Shout out to LAFB, Chargers Unleashed. We're here for you guys as much as possible. Again, hit that like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.